Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning into Health Podcast Show, the place to be to get the insights of leaders working at the intersection of health, science, and media. I'm your host, Dan Kendall, and this episode features a recording from the 2025 Health Podcast Summit, which was held on October 1st and 2nd. In total, we interviewed 42 speakers in 37 sessions that span topics across health, science, policy, and podcasting. You can wait to get access to all the sessions as we publish them here on your favorite platform, or you can get access to all the recordings, links, and resources by visiting our website at healthpodcast.org. Again, that's healthpodcast.org. Enjoy the show. Welcome to this session of Health Podcast Summit 2025. I'm your host, Dan Kendall. Our next speaker is Brinley Reuter. Brinley is the CEO and founder of an organization called Science to People. It's a public interest incubator building innovative tools, platforms, frameworks, and media that make scientific insights accessible, actionable, and trusted at scale. After reading about Harvard research that showed TikTok influencers gained 500,000 additional views after receiving evidence-based toolkits, she saw the need for purpose-built AI that will help creators generate accurate health content in their authentic voice. In this session, Brinley explains why commercial large language models can spread health misinformation and how her approach will limit responses to peer-reviewed resources only. Her organization, Science to People, is planning a pilot program in 2026. If you'd like to participate as a creator, partner, or research collaborator, subscribe on their website for updates. It's sciencetopeople.org. That's sciencetopeople.org. I'd like to take a moment to thank all our sponsors and partners who make Health Podcast Summit 2025 possible. A special thanks to our gold sponsor, BetterHelp, and to our silver sponsor, ZS. Please visit healthpodcastsummit.com for links to all these organizations and special offers. Now let's tune into the conversation with Brinley Reuter of Science to People. Brinley, thank you so much for joining me here at Health Podcast Summit.
Thank you so much for having me, Dan.
So, Brinley, I want to start at the big picture and then dive in. But let's first of all just talk about what it is that you're doing as an organization, because I was introduced to you by Aaron O'Malley, who has many wonderful things to say about you. And there seems to be a whole ecosystem of people that are working in this trust and content space that are part of now Health Podcast Summit and that we're trying to share more information about. So I want to understand specifically what it is that your role is in your organization that you've put together.
So we're finding that obviously we're in a bit of a trust crisis. And when it comes to public health information in particular, and the folks that people are turning to for information that they will apply to their daily lives, their decision-making, that will impact themselves, their families, is not coming from the same sources that we're used to it coming from, right? Traditionally used to doctors, your primary care provider, the local public health center or officials, big national organizations like the CDC or international organizations like the WHO, kind of having this top-down approach to sharing information with the public. But what we're finding, and I think what we all kind of knew, but now evidence is showing us, is that people are really turning to content creators for that information. And it can be content creators that look like them, talk like them, speak directly kind of to their type of demographic or need, or content creators that come kind of as this like expert talking head, where it's maybe a lived experience content creator or a medical content creator in some capacity. And so at Science to People, we're looking to provide those content creators with the evidence-based information that they and their audiences really need to try to reduce the amount of inaccurate information about health and science coming across on these platforms, but provide it to them in really easy to understand plain language and in the tone and vibe of the way that they're already talking to their audience, so that they can continue to facilitate that trust and comfort with the people that pay attention to what they're saying every day. So we're developing an AI language model specifically trained to be an expert science communicator, to communicate science really well and in line with what we know are the best practices, but also all in the tone and vibe of the content creator themselves.
That's excellent. Thank you so much for that explanation, because that's exactly why I was so pleased to be introduced to you and pleased that you agreed to come on and share what it is that you're working on, because it's that intersection of AI and content and health information that has a lot of people concerned and excited about what the future can hold. And as we've created podcasts now, as a business, I've been creating podcasts for about 10 years. I've been listening to podcasts for about 20 years, ever since I got my 2005 80 gigabyte iPod that I dug out. But when it comes to creating, using AI in information, everything's changing. It's changing really rapidly. And I actually wonder what the next few years are going to look like as things are changing quite as fast as they are. They're talking about changes in terms of web searches and how people are now consulting AI and summaries instead of doing that. So the whole way that we're discovering content and discovering resources and people and organizations is changing and now becoming very, very AI focused. And it's going to be even different by the time this session airs, and different in the beginning of 2026. So you mentioned on our pre-call that you were inspired by a Harvard study. Can you share us a little bit more about what that study was and how that affected your view on this?
Yes. So I started Science to People on a theory of change, which was that if we give evidence-based information in plain language to the content creators that people are already paying attention to, that we can, but do it quickly and easily, right? We can scale access to accurate information for the public when it comes to their health. And that was all because of a New York Times article that I read, where they talked about some research that was being done at the Harvard School for Public Health, at the Center for Health Communication there, Amanda Yarnell's team. And they provided TikTok influencers with PDF evidence-based toolkits with information in it about certain mental health topics. They were in plain language, but it was all rooted in peer-reviewed academic information. And surprise, surprise, it was super effective. If you give creators the content and they know that they can trust it, they're going to share it, they're going to use it, and their audiences respond really well to it. So I just found this absolutely fascinating and thought that this type of leverage point could really make a difference in the content ecosystem that we're all living in right now. But I have a tech background. I come from the tech industry. I wasn't in public health at the time, but I've always been very kind of social impact minded. And so with this bias towards scale from working in tech for so long, and this interest in kind of changing public well-being, leveraging the media, I reached out to Amanda and her team at Harvard and said, this is amazing. I love what you're doing. I think this is so cool. And like, how can you scale it? Because you can't keep making PDFs manually and emailing them to content creators, hoping that they'll include the content in their next post, right? That's very traditional public health, which has worked really well. That's that push model of public health communications. We manually create information and we give it to the people that we hope will share it, right? So I thought, what if we flip that on its head and we allowed the content creators to pull the information themselves? They say, I want to talk about the impact of racism on maternal health. And this is something that I'm super passionate about. Maybe I'm a Black mom creator, and it's not something I've really delved into before. I don't know where to go. I could Google it. I could look at a Reddit thread. I could try to read some academic papers, but it might be paywalled. I might not have access to it, right? There's a whole host of kind of blockers. And the likelihood that Amanda and her team have produced a perfect toolkit for this creator is probably pretty low. So I thought, what if we could leverage AI to allow this creator to pull that information from trustworthy sources and have it automatically write the talking points for her in language that her audience will respond to and in a tone and vibe that she's already creating in. So not doing her job for her, but getting her maybe 50, 60% there. So then she can create this beautiful content. She can design it. She can put it out for her audiences, whether it's in a podcast or a blog post or a newsletter or an Instagram, right? So that's where this idea came from. And that's what we've been building towards, is basically operationalizing the success that we saw in that Harvard study that 500,000 additional views on the posts that were included in the trial, and seeing how we can help to scale this type of program.
So what would be different about what you just described to going to Claude or ChatGPT? They just released their version 5. What would be the difference in going through and having a conversation with it and training it and saying, this is the way that I want to communicate with my audience, and this is the way that I talk naturally, or here's some transcripts of previous things that I've done, videos and YouTube links and so forth, and saying, take the information that's available and distill it down? I have a feeling I know what you're going to say in terms of where that data is coming from, but what's fundamentally the difference in terms of the way the technology would work for a user, a creator in that instance?
So I get this question all the time. And I wish I could say, just do that, Dan. And believe me, when I started this organization 2 years ago, I tried all of the available tools and technologies 2 years ago, but to see if you could hack it together to make this work. I did not set out to start an organization building an AI for health and science communication. I'm a mom of 2 toddlers. I had a job. I was getting my master's at Harvard. I had no stuff to do. And I equate it to using a knife to open a can versus using the purpose-built tool that we all have in our kitchens, which is the can opener. You can use a knife to open a can, but it's messy and it might hurt you or somebody else nearby, right? I don't know if you've ever tried to do that, but my kids demanded olives once. My can opener wasn't in sight for some reason, and I almost killed myself trying to open the olives for the kids. Or you can use this purpose-built tool that maybe you pull out once a month, but every single kitchen in America has a can opener. So we're building the can opener for science communication.
So is what you're saying is that there could be a model where organizations like the American Heart Association or another group could actually feed in their data into your LLM and sort of give you permission to utilize that? Maybe that's on some sort of free fee structure. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just a matter of their mission is to make sure that people have this information about stroke or congestive heart failure, and they're putting it into an LLM. And that way, at least, you know, you've trained it not on what somebody's TikTok video was or what some Reddit thread was, but you're actually training it on science-based, evidence-based, expert, authentic data. Is that really the model you're working towards?
Kind of.
Okay.
So Dr. Amelia Burke Garcia, who's at NORC at the University of Chicago, coined a concept about a year ago called health communication AI. And she proposed that this is purpose-built AI models trained on curated, peer-reviewed corpus of data and fine-tuned to translate complex science into plain language without losing accuracy. Dr. Burke Garcia and I recently wrote an article. It's actually being published at the end of August for the National Academy of Medicine Press about leveraging health communication AI with the power of content creators. So you all can read that in towards the end of August 25th is when it's going to be published. And what I took from Dr. Burke Garcia's health communication AI proposal was the value actually comes in the fine-tuned model being able to translate the complex information into plain language. And then instead of training the model on health information, which health and science changes day to day, it's inherently gray. The scientific method means we don't ever really have the truth, right? We have the current hypothesis. So I actually don't love the idea of training models on medical and health and science information. I prefer building a really robust, highly curated RAG model, and then leveraging a fine-tuned model like we are building that's specifically to communicate that evidence really, really well. So the RAG will continuously update with the best information available from various trusted sources. In our case, we're actually choosing to start with peer-reviewed, academically published full-text information. And then we will probably, I don't want to promise, but we are looking to partner with a very well-respected third-party scientific body to gain access to their corpus of content from their past 100 years serving the public. And then eventually we may incorporate third-party sources like the American Heart Association or otherwise. I think, though, that basically those pieces of information are text and content that's already been translated from the evidence. And while they may have validated it and reviewed it themselves, the way that we're designing our interaction is that our users will get the information straight from the source. They'll get it straight from that peer-reviewed article. And that will reduce the amount of misinformation or hallucination likely from the model. And it also really narrows the amount of information that the model is pulling from, which is the concern, to answer your previous question about using a large language-based model like Claude or ChatGPT. You're pulling from all of the information in the world. And if AI is basically picking from a bag of words, you're picking from an ocean instead of a warehouse. And the likelihood that you're going to get the right match when you're picking from the ocean of information is a lot lower. And we need much higher standards than that for health.
Okay. Well, Brinley, I'm afraid that you have set off the jargon alert. You've used the word RAG model. And immediately I thought, okay, we're going to need to dive in and explain RAG models. So just in the simplest terms that you can for everyone out there in the audience, can you explain what a RAG model is?
Yeah. So I think it's the bag of words that you are allowing the AI model to pick from. So a RAG is retrieval augmented generation. And you basically tell it, don't pick from that ocean of words that you have, ChatGPT. Just pick from what I'm telling you to pick from, this much smaller warehouse or bag of words, right? So you're limiting the amount of information that the AI can choose from. Because when you're allowing it to choose from all of human knowledge, the likelihood that it picks up some random bogus thread on, I don't know, sunscreen causing cancer from Reddit is high. But if we say, don't pay attention to that, only pay attention to this peer-reviewed information on the efficacy of sunscreen at reducing your risk of cancers, then you're more likely to get accurate information. Is that
Great.
helpful?
It's helpful, and I think it also helps to describe RAG models. I hope this is accurate. You'll tell me if it's incorrect. But RAG models are things that a lot of organizations implement so that they can train things on their data and not have to worry about feeding the open engine of a lot of these LLMs. And obviously, for your use case, as we're describing here, it seems to be a very good model to get this information into one place. I believe I'm correct that you conducted research and tried to fool some of the AI into giving you false information. And you probably, I'm sure you alluded to it earlier, you also were looking for real information and struggling to do that. So can you tell us what happened when you tried to trick the AI systems?
So I can't take credit for that. What I did do is review somebody's research and write the editorial about it for the Annals of Internal Medicine. So I was asked to comment on a paper from an incredible team who did research into the ability to manipulate the 5 leading commercial language models to intentionally provide false information about health and medicine. And myself with Dr. Reed Tuckson, who's kind of a leading trust and health safety thinker in this space, wrote a paper responding to that brilliant research and recommending next steps to mitigate the likelihood that these commercial large language models are abused when people are trying to create content about health and medicine information. So what they found was that the 4 of the 5 leading commercial models could be manipulated to provide misinformation in a very convincing format 100% of the time.
Wow.
And only one, which is Claude, I'll shout it to the rooftops, because if you're going to use a commercial language model for interpreting health information, please only use Claude. I promise I don't work for them. I'd rather you use our model when it's ready. Come and use Verify from Science to People. Hit me up in December when we launch. But until then, please use Claude, because the other 4 leading models are very easily manipulated to share misinformation. And for goodness sakes, do not trust the custom GPTs from the GPT store that say that they are really great at colloquializing, or sorry, that was jargon, at putting medicine or health information into plain language, because the likelihood is that they have been back-end engineered to provide misinformation or disinformation about those topics that you're searching for evidence on. And so that was pretty concerning findings, and not anything we didn't know, but it put data to our hunches, right?
So am I understanding this correctly, that you're developing this RAG model for this warehouse of words and data that you're using to pick the answers for the user experience as people go into a variety of these different models, ChatGPT and Claude. I use Claude a lot. We use it as a team. So they go and they're going to come to your platform and ask a question that's going to look at only the information that's stored within that library, if you will. Maybe a library is a better analogy than a warehouse. So all the books that have been populated in there, we know that they're all scientifically based, and that's where it's going to go. So it's going to be more difficult to sort of hack a fake answer out of some of these things, and you're going to have more resilience from the data responses that are being provided to the listener or to the user. Is that a good way to describe it?
That is, yes. So our AI model will talk like a science communicator, but have a very tight library of science and health information that it pulls from. And so if Dan comes and says, I want to do a 45-minute podcast on creatine to build muscle, it's going to write that for you in the ways that we know that information should best be communicated with the public, for stickiness, for interest, for belief and behavior change. And then the information that it's pulling from will all be from peer-reviewed, evidence-based information, not from Reddit and somebody's grandmother's Facebook post from 2004.
But you've positioned this a few times as being sort of creator driven, like you're trying to support the digital creators out there. A lot of people who are attending this event will put themselves in that bag. And I can understand, as the first port of call, perhaps that's where you want to start and serve those folks. Why not the general public? Why not have it just be, I know that I need to get a medically accurate response to my question, so I'm going to go to this library of resources as opposed to something else. So what's going to prevent someone, an individual user, and why wouldn't you want just an individual user going into this library of information and just getting a response to their medical inquiries?
So we're starting with creators because we feel that they have such an incredible leverage point in culture and society to change the quality of information that the public are interacting with on a day-to-day basis. And yes, we do find that because of things like self-determination theory, that the public do want to get their own information a lot more now than they ever have before. That being said, I think that we will eventually build a public-facing tool and access point, but I'm not sure that Science to People needs to be the one releasing that. We might help somebody else who has the authority and the institutional kind of respect to build that tool for the public. I don't know if Science to People needs to be the face of accurate scientific information for all of the public to access. I think that we could partner with somebody to build that tool for the public. Right now, We're focusing on building a public-facing tool or a publicly available tool for content creators called Akari. That's this content creation idea studio where you can come and make your content prototypes, basically. Then you go and build them and launch them on whatever platform you're sharing information on. So that's Akari. Then we're also doing Vericoms, which is a similar tool, but specifically for public health communicators. And we're partnering with the Public Health Communications Collaborative and the Beaumont Foundation to build that. And then we'll be able to kind of package the various versions and Legos of these products and services for other organizations and institutions. So if the National Academy of Medicine wants to come to us and say, we want to build a public-facing information hub where the public can interact by using generative AI with validated medical and health information to answer their questions, we would help power that for them. But I don't know if science to people should be the face of that. I think that we need to work with the institutions that already have the public trust, which we know that trust is changing over time, as we discussed at the top. But I think instead of creating new institutions, we need to work on strengthening the trust, the ones that we have. And I think that leveraging AI tools can help them do that.
So I can imagine some content creators might also have some additional concerns about this, because we've seen AI-generated personas selling products, cosmetics, clothing, creating music, becoming bands, and actually, achieving some financial and commercial success by creating this AI-generated music. So what would prevent this, instead of being a resource for a creator who's trying to impact their audience with good, solid, evidence-based, human-centered information, what would be the limitation? Why would we necessarily want to limit the ability to create an avatar that might speak specifically to a person's, interests and what they've found interesting on their TikTok, or who they relate to most and who they resonate with in the sort of celebrity world, and then create an avatar that can deliver this information in a way that they would perhaps be more amenable to it, rather than go to a real human creator? Do you see challenges in that, or opportunities?
I think I see challenges and opportunities. So the challenge is that trust is built with humans through human experience. And when we create avatars, it's a simulated human experience. It's simulated empathy. It's a simulated, bi-directional relationship. We know that the general public form relationships with content creators through the power of what science calls parasocial relationships. And that's extremely valuable. And that's why we're seeing this boom of creator trust for sharing information about things like health and wellness. When it's an avatar, even if the evidence behind it is validated and the way of communicating it is valid or effective, I think that there's still a lived experience trust component that's missing. You can fake it, but I wonder how far that will get us in the long run. Mm-hmm. So I do believe that there's a lot of power to always having a human in the loop when it comes to sharing information with other people, especially information that will impact their well-being in their daily life. So I think you can build those things, but I don't like the idea of taking jobs from real people who can do it super well and are coming at it from a deep lived experience and, opportunity to share their relation with the topic with the public in an authentic way, instead of this kind of phony, fake authenticity that comes with an AI avatar. But people also feel a lot of safety when interacting with AI chatbots or companions or otherwise in disclosing vulnerabilities, personal information that might be sensitive, that a human might not respond to very well. So there is value in allowing an individual to interact with an AI agent in some capacity, when it's a sensitive topic that they might not be able to share with another human. So there's pluses and minuses.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to bring that point up. There are studies that have proven that people are more honest and open when they believe they're talking with an AI-generated, non-human. And so that can be a good thing to not have the embarrassment or the stigma or the concern of being judged by the person they're giving their health information to. There can also be benefits from being able to generate an avatar that might look like them. So there can be some real benefit to being able to create these avatars to be able to make a more comfortable environment for the person sharing information. But I actually think that that all that AI generation is going to be table stakes, because being able to access that information is going to and being able to share it in a way that's going to help people get access to care is going to force those of us who are actually providing care or providing information to deliver a higher level of connection. So people will have so many resources that they can turn to. We've seen this with Google, that it actually puts a higher imperative on when they do actually go to that next level of what do I actually do with this. It's not going to be delivered by AI. There's going to need to be somebody that has board licensure and a practice in their community that they can go and access, and they can receive treatment or get their loved one for diagnosis. So I think there's, as you said, there's positives and negatives. There's opportunities and challenges with all of this.
Yeah, and I think my hope for the future is that we really start toolizing AI. Instead of building these AIs for everything, we build AIs for purpose, and humans know when to go to them and when to leverage them. And then we also know when to stop using them and when to turn to a human. And so I think the better we get at building really good purpose-built AI. So again, back to Dr. Brooke Garcia's, health communication AI concept. I think that's what we're hoping to build with our tools at Science to People, and that we offer these really great little packages that you interact with when you need them. And then the human is still front and center to be either that delivery method or otherwise, depending on the need.
So can you give the audience a little bit of insight about what to expect and maybe some things that you need, ways that people can be involved and support the work that you're doing?
Yeah, I would love folks to read the newly published article from the National Academy Press that Dr. Brooke Garcia and I wrote on health communication AI and social media as a leverage point in those conversations with the public. I'd also love for people to check out sciencetopeople.org and let us know if you're interested in participating in our upcoming pilot. We will be testing our first prototype of the Akari creator platform and Idea Studio. And we're looking for content creators to try that out with us in Q1 of 2026. We're also looking for institutional partners, institutions or organizations that are interested in building with the health communication AI to come to us and partner.
That's exciting. I know I'm going to sign up and be on that list, and I would love to learn more and experience this and give feedback and see ways that we can apply this to the creator community as a whole. So I really feel a huge opportunity in healthcare content, and with the audio version specifically. How can we connect with people when they're commuting in their kitchen, when they're in their kitchens, when they're at the gym, when they're on their dog walks, and really take things off screen and allow things to be delivered? I think that's where the human piece currently with what you're designing really comes into effect, that people can find this information, put it into their own voice, and then deliver it through audio to their audiences. And then we'll see where things unfold in terms of what's next. What are you most hopeful about when it comes to AI and the intersection with healthcare now?
Scale. That we'll be able to scale the access to information that creators need and really speed up their content creation process so that they can get evidence-based information that they can trust to the public quickly and easily and in the formats that they already need it in.
Where can people connect with you and learn more about your work?
sciencetopeople.org is the best way to keep in touch with us. We have a Substack newsletter that comes out whenever I have something to say. So you can follow us on Substack and subscribe to the newsletter there. And we'll also be working on season 2 of our podcast, the Science to People podcast, which is on Spotify and YouTube.
Well, my guest has been Brinley Murphy-Reuter. Thank you very much, Brinley, for coming and sharing the work that you're doing at Science to People. I am really excited about seeing this and the impact that AI is going to have to assist content creation across the healthcare spectrum and around the world. So thank you for coming on and sharing your work.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been really fun.